Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to the Red Rabbit Hole. How are you all? I hope you're all right. I hope you're enjoying listening along to us here. So today we've got a very special episode. It's just myself and Nicky. Nicky, are you there?
Of course, I'm always here. As I've said before, I never leave.
Well, we don't let you out.
Probably for the best.
Have you figured out what it is you did yet that led to your banishment down the Red Rabbit Hole?
I don't think I care really. I'm just accepting my fate.
Happy to be here now, I feel. You've adjusted. You like your eyes have adjusted to the dim, low lights in the murky depths,
I've
and
become
you feel
accustomed.
comfortable here.
Yeah, institutionalized now. Don't want to get out.
So, Nikki, you're bringing something to me today,
I am.
aren't you?
I
Have something
am.
special this episode for me. What is it?
I don't want to say it's my favorite case because that sounds weird. But I'm bringing to you one of the cases that got me into true crime, basically,
Oh,
and that is, drum roll please, Jack the Ripper.
oh, Jack the Ripper. Now, I think you're going to tell me off because I don't know a huge amount about Jack the
I am
Ripper.
going to tell you off because I think as any true crime enthusiast should get slapped around for not knowing anything about. I mean, I'm hoping you know the basics.
I'm about to get banished from my banishment, aren't
You
I?
are.
You are banished from the Red Rabbit Hole for simply not knowing enough about true crime.
That was your escape plan all along, wasn't it?
Yes, I know about many, but Jack the Ripper is well, yeah, obviously I kind of know the basics, but not the details. So I'm excited to get the details.
He's not dear to my heart, but it's a case that's quite dear to my heart because it kind of I guess inspired my darkness in a way, but also
It's to blame, is he?
I'm not to blame. But I'll tell you what happened. So when I was young, I went to Madame Tussauds in London, and I was told not to go into the basement, which was the Dungeon of Horrors,
Oh, why not?
because I was too young. I was little.
How
I
old were
was probably
you?
about 7, I think.
And you went
I
in
did. I
anyway.
went in anyway.
This was always on the cards
It
for
was,
you.
wasn't it? It was,
It
you know,
was.
it was the siren call of darkness. And off I went, off I toddled, and the very first diorama you come across, what back then it was, whether it's same now, is Jack the Ripper. And you press the button and it kind of highlights it, kind of flashes of this scene of a man in a cape and a top hat and a medical bag, hovering over a disemboweled woman on the cobbled streets, Victorian streets. And I was hooked.
And you were
7.
7. I mean, I have a 7-year-old,
Yeah.
and the other day they got upset about a cartoon they were watching. So
I was aghast. And then I moved on. I think the next one was a guy in an electric chair that you could press and, like, electrify. So that
yeah,
took
and
up a
they had
lot
to
of my
drag
time.
you away because you were
Yeah.
just pressing the button.
Die, die.
Electrocute him.
Yeah.
I know what I'm gonna do with this later on in life. I'm gonna write from a killer's
I'm gonna write
perspective.
from a killer's perspective. But also from kind of my point of view as a writer, I had a story published in the Mammoth Book of Jack the Ripper, and it was my first kind of big time publishing offer, so to speak, that came in. And so he kind of felt, as awful as this sounds, lucky for me, I guess.
Ah,
So my fascination has always been there, and there's always something, isn't there? There's always something in the news, Jack the Ripper discovered, or we think it's this. And
yeah, it's a pervasive case, isn't it? Or it comes up frequently.
And I mean, there's a name for people that are really obsessed with it and research it as well. So they're called ripperologists, they're called. So to have that,
A
it's a big case. It's a big meaty case.
ripperologist. Is that a job? Can I be a ripperologist?
I think it's more of a hobby. I want to say I'm not sure how many people
Uh,
get paid.
I
I'll,
don't know. At university, like, there's got to be professors of ripperology.
maybe, but I don't think anyone can do a whole degree on it. That might be a bit much. I am certainly not a ripperologist, I'll say that, but I do know a lot and I've done a lot of research.
You
So
know a lot of ripperologists.
I
Like,
don't know any
you've got 'em
personally.
as friends. Are they your? Are they in your phone? You got their numbers? Call
Only.
them up.
I would, do you know,
Just
any
give
ripperologists
ripperology
out
facts.
there,
You in the group? The group chat.
the group
Do you
chat.
reckon there's a
Oh,
ripperologist
I'd
group
hope
chat?
so because, obviously you know nothing, so I can't really discuss it with you. But someone who does know, oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. All right. It'd be so much fun, more
Yeah.
fun to be discussing this with someone else right now, wouldn't it?
Def
Yeah.
well, that's the slogan for the
Apart
show,
from,
Lisa.
apart from the shameful, shameful person who dares to call themselves a fan of true crime and doesn't know a huge amount about Jack the Ripper.
Well, you know of him. I guess that's something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've never been to the Madame Tussauds, I don't think. I don't
Mm.
think I've seen that diorama.
If it's still there, it might not still be there. I'm sure more horrors have happened between sort of then and now to have dioramas on, but
That's
hey,
true. That's true. But ripper me up.
I will rip you up. I don't think that works, but okay.
Ripper me to pieces.
I mean, it's a long story. Long story short, I'm gonna summarize this. The kind of the bane of every writer's existence is summarizing something up. So, in the later months of the year 1888, in Whitechapel in London, there was a series of murders. Um, well, people say that it was 5 murders. I am gonna, as we go on, talk about other murders that could have been Jack the Ripper. Perhaps that'll be the next episode that we can talk about that. But there is what's known as the canonical 5, which are the 5 women that are believed to have been killed by Jack the Ripper in the time that he was loose in Whitechapel.
What's canonical?
Canonical 5. It's like the main 5, I guess. I suppose that is insinuating that there could have been others, but they're just referred to as the
Oh,
canonical 5. Good question. Maybe we should
yeah.
look that up. As to
Oh, okay.
mm.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I just never heard of that word
Yeah,
before.
canonical 5. There was also a really good book, which we'll come to as well, that talks about the 5 women because I think victims, as we've said before, they always get left behind.
Yes.
The killer is sensationalized and the victims are forgotten, and some of the stuff that came out with the victims, I get quite annoyed with. So again, I don't want to get on a soapbox too early, but we will discuss the victims in greater detail.
Okay, canonical is included in the list of sacred books or officially accepted as genuine
There you go. So these are the
in terms of
officially
in the
accepted.
Testament. So it's like a yeah, so it's a churchy word. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But from from a religious perspective, that's what it is. So it definitely suggests there's more, doesn't it?
Yeah, these are, so that's saying these are the accepted ones. I don't believe that. I think one of them perhaps wasn't him. But then again, that's my personal opinion. I don't It's not like I have
Oh, let's
much in
go.
the way of evidence here, but this is just my personal opinion. But every day's a school day, isn't it, Lisa? So we
Mm.
learned something. We learned what canonical actually means.
This feels like I'm being sat down for True Crime 101, and I've got to pass this, or otherwise I'm getting kicked out.
Yes, I want an essay, a 2,000-word
Yeah.
essay at the end.
There will be a test at the end.
Pop quiz,
Yeah,
hot
there'll
shot.
be a little pop quiz at the end about tests of my ripperology.
Your ripperology. Okay. So what happened? There he was, 1888, Whitechapel, London, killing women, prostitutes in the street, in quite a horrific manner. If you have the stomach for it, there are images because their photography was about then,
Ooh.
of the scenes. One in particular for the last victim, Mary Kelly. You can't unsee them. That's all I'm going to say. They're black and white, but you cannot unsee what he did. Basically, the last one was the worst one because it was inside. It was actually inside her flat, and he obviously spent a lot of time with her and did exactly what he wanted to do. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to go into too much as to the gruesomeness of the hows and the whys of him for obvious reasons. I don't want to scare people. I don't want to suddenly have this as a adults only podcast. But if you so as choose, you can see what exactly he did. But let's just say he was very skilled with a knife.
Mm. Yeah, because they thought it was a doctor. That's why you've mentioned the doctor's
Yeah.
briefcase and some of what he did felt like he had some knowledge of how to use a scalpel and
Well, I mean, I think looking at the kind of research that I've done, The kind of image of Jack the Ripper in the top hat and cape with the doctor's bag is more of a caricature of what was actually going on,
Ah.
because a man in a top hat and cape would stand out like a sore thumb in Whitechapel at the time. Whitechapel was a very poor area of London, and you can't do what he did and be sticking out like a sore thumb. You've got to be unseen to do that, and that certainly wouldn't have been unseen.
So do you think so top hat, would that have perhaps indicated wealth? Money?
There was theories that obviously with them being prostitutes, the victims, that again allegedly, um, that him being a well-off gentleman, they'd have been more comfortable with him. However, my kind of feeling is that if you're selling your body on the streets of Whitechapel, it doesn't particularly matter to you how comfortable you are with, if this is what you have to do to make ends meet, to feed your family, to feed yourself, then unfortunately you're going to take whatever comes. So to me, him being a well-established gentleman doesn't really match up with what would be needed for him to kind of slip silently through those cobbled streets and do what he did. I think that the caricature kind of image of that came from a police drawing, like a drawing from, or maybe even a comic from the papers at the time, because obviously he was all in the media. He was kind of really the first
Yeah.
serial killer media sensation as well.
Mm.
So I think a lot of it came
That's
from there.
interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But the most fascinating part of this is we're probably never going to know.
No. That's why I've not looked at it, Nicky. You know how I feel about unsolved
Yeah, I know
cases.
how you feel about closure. I get it.
I like closure, I want to
You
know.
like closure, but that's fine. So I tell you what, let me run through the suspects with you, and you give me
Okay.
your thoughts on them as we go. So there was a lot of suspects. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it was a massive list, and I can't do them all here. So I've picked out some of the ones that I think kind of stood out as a possibility, but also I picked out a couple that clearly weren't going to happen, but were quite interesting from my point of view. So here we go. So suspect number one was a guy called Aaron Kozominski. I've probably said that horribly wrong. Aaron.
Aaron, which might well be pronounced Aaron.
It
We
could
don't
be
know
Aaron.
because some
It was
people
more
could be
Kozominski
Aaron.
that I was a little bit concerned
Yeah.
about, but
No, no, but I thought I'd just pick up on that there are other ways of pronouncing Aaron as well. But, yeah, we'll go with Aaron. So Aaron, tell me about him.
okay. So Aaron was a hairdresser in Whitechapel. He had a notable hatred of women. I'm not sure who said that and how that came about, but apparently that was so. And had homicidal tendencies. This is why the police thought it was him.
Again, yeah,
Tendencies.
tendencies. Tendencies.
Clearly,
Is it?
he wasn't getting on being a barber. He just
Yeah, well, it's not it's like, "Oh, he was the demon barber of Fleet Street," kind of thing, wouldn't it? It sounds like
could be
it sounds like that, but also just tendencies. Just he
tendencies.
was a little bit
Homicidal
sort of angled in
tendencies.
the homicidal direction, you
If you
know?
saw that on a
Well,
dating profile, you'd be swiped up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'd be hitting the alert
yeah.
button. Ding, 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 ding,
So
ding.
the big evidence now, sort of as time has moved on, that it could be him was his, and we've mentioned this before, DNA. His
Oh, yeah.
chondrial DNA was found on Catherine Eddowes' shawl, which was one of the victims.
Oh, she hadn't been there for a haircut earlier in the
Who
day.
knows? That's the problem. And maybe they sat together and they had a drink, or maybe he stood behind her at the bar. You just can't
But he
say.
hated
He
women,
hated women, yeah. So
apparently.
good enough for them.
Was this potentially sort of, early homosexuality that wouldn't, well, not early, there's always been homosexuality, but, like, not accepted societal perspectives on men who might not prefer women in a relationship?
It's hard to tell, but from what I've known about like Victorian England, women in these poorer areas like Whitechapel did not fare well generally. Um, the expression, um, the rule of thumb. Have you heard the rule of thumb as an expression? So
Yeah,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
as an expression, the rule of thumb. But where that actually came from is that in Victorian England, you couldn't beat your wife with a stick that was bigger than your thumb. But if it was smaller than your thumb, go for it.
Oh, I had no idea that's where that came from. That's disgusting.
So, I think anyone who perhaps didn't like women for whatever reason could be quite open about it because I don't think anyone really cared,
Yeah.
especially in those
Yeah.
areas. He was in Whitechapel all the time it was happening. That's about it in terms of evidence that I found. But that was old Aaron for you.
That's Aaron. I'm not sure I'm going to Aaron for a haircut. He doesn't sound like, he could make good small talk,
No,
make me feel at ease when he's chopping my hair.
he's not going to ask you where have you been on holiday.
No, he's not, is he? He's not gonna kinda, "Hi, how's it going?" And the weather's been good, you know? No, Aaron, but, what have your homicidal tendencies taken you
Yeah.
recently, you know? Well, where were you last night? Down this back alley?
Well, I was using this woman's shawl to get the blood off me. Um, or not. Who knows? Okay,
Mm.
so
Okay, so that's
Aaron.
Aaron.
Second one, Francis Craig. Now,
Can I rate them?
yes,
Should I rate them on how much I think, like, out of 10 it was them? 10 being absolutely, I think it is them, and 0 being I don't think it
I
is
think
them.
wait until you've heard the list and then give me who you think it is.
Oh,
Okay.
alright, okay.
So we got Francis Craig. Now, Francis Craig was actually the husband of Mary Kelly, who was the effectively inverted commas final victim of Jack the Ripper, the one that suffered literally the most horrendous injuries.
Mm.
He was confirmed as suffering from schizophrenia, which to me it doesn't lend itself very well to a man who's getting away with these kind of quite outlandish murders.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he discovered that Mary Kelly was a prostitute, and the whole theory around this was that he wanted to kill her for her infidelity and a load of other prostitutes just to cover it up.
I mean, how did he not know they were
And
married?
she was quite young too. She was quite young. And also, as a kind of a sideline, he actually worked as a reporter. So he worked within the media and was putting himself into the investigation quite heavily. So
Okay.
whether he was doing stuff to, if it was him, to misdirect, whether he was trying to play the police, I don't know.
Or could it have even been the opposite, that he was perhaps intrigued to try and protect his wife, who he did know was a prostitute?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think the fact that he had schizophrenia would make him less of a murderer, so to speak, and doing the things that Jack the Ripper did. And also, I just don't see the theory of I'm going to kill my wife, but I'm going to kill a load of other women just to cover it up.
Well, normally, not normally, but it's usually the other way round, isn't it? When you see serial killers, other cases that we've looked at, there's usually the first one or the kind of inciting kind of incident or thing that kind of set them on a path of having this particular profile that they were going for, this particular kind of method.
Mm.
So it would almost be backward, wouldn't it? If it's, oh, I hated her, I wanted to kill her, but so then I went and killed other prostitutes. Was there any relationship between the women, do we know?
No, no.
So they wouldn't have known each other, they wouldn't have
Maybe
all
in
had the same
passing or
pimp or anything
something.
like
Maybe
that?
in passing. But again, we'll go into the victims a little
Okay.
bit later as to
Yeah,
how it all came
okay.
about. So that's old Francis Craig. Oh yeah. The next one is called Montague John Druitt. Sounds like a decent guy. Yes.
Yeah, it's going up the rankings and I
However,
like making assumptions about class based on name, basically, here I am.
unfortunately, old Montague John Druitt was described as sexually insane.
Oh, Monty. Oh, Monty. Sexually insane.
Sexually insane, he'd been described as.
Swipe. No, thank you. Oh, it's not looking good around Whitechapel, is it, if you're
You
on,
know. Now, the thing is that the other evidence, if you want to call it evidence, was that the murders ended when he actually committed suicide. So they're saying that if he was the murderer, he was guilty. You know, he felt guilty, he committed suicide, and he was seen a lot in Whitechapel. However, most people, again, information can be varied and hard to kind of pinpoint at the time because you don't know how accurate stuff was back then. But it's strongly believed that at the time of death, when he died, um, Kelly's murder had already hadn't happened yet. So if you want to
okay.
say that Mary Kelly's murder is part of Jack the Ripper's canonical 5, then in theory it couldn't have been Montague John Druitt if that time of death is correct. Then he was already dead by the time that she was
Um,
murdered.
okay. I mean, talking about that, knowing what evidence is and what's true and what isn't from what we've got at the time, how do they decide that these people have homicidal tendencies or are sexually insane? Like, what have they done to give themselves that label?
Victorian England was a time all unto itself. I mean, if you have a look at some of the, again, not to go into it too much, but devices in inverted commas that they had, especially in insane asylums and that, it was
Yeah.
rough. So who knows? That might even just be that he just didn't like to do it. I mean, who knows? Don't
Oh
know.
gosh.
So no, our, our next
Mm.
contestant
Oh, Monty. Yes, next contestant up
is,
is next
and I'm probably
entry.
going to say this wrong, Carl Fagenbaum.
Ooh,
Carl Fagenbaum.
now it was him. I'm sorry, but it was him. That name screams.
Let me tell you about Carl. So
Brilliant.
Carl was a German sailor who confessed
Mm.
to people that he regularly mutilated women. Now, how that comes up in conversation, I just don't know.
Oh god. Oh god, honestly. What's your hobby, Carl? Well, mutilating women. I love it. You know, that and
He was docked in Whitechapel the entire time the murders were taking place. And he actually left to go to the US when the murders stopped, so after Mary Kelly, and was convicted of killing a woman in the exact same way as Jack the Ripper and was sentenced to the electric chair in the US.
well, yeah.
Mm, intriguing.
Yeah. Ah, it
Intriguing.
is.
Could be Carl.
And I think I'm spot on. I think it is Carl.
Well, wait. There's more. There's more. There's even more than that. Okay, so in the book Portrait of a Killer by the very talented Patricia Cornwall, she puts forward her theory on who she thought Jack the Ripper was, and she thought
Ooh,
it was an artist called Walter Sickert.
sick it.
So Walter Sickert was well known for painting prostitutes, very gothic, dark paintings, and again later on, mitochondrial DNA evidence was actually discovered on the From Hell letters that were apparently meant to have been sent by Jack the.
But if he liked that, like if he quite liked doing dark, painting dark images of prostitutes, and like this kind of case, he might have pulled himself into it for like have sent the letters. Did the letters contain anything that said, right, this has got to be Jack the Ripper because he's got details other people wouldn't have?
Well, I mean, times back then were very different. There perhaps would have been people talking all the time. He could have learnt stuff that wasn't in the newspapers. Nothing was, it wasn't the same as it was now, where everyone would kind of close ranks. Things could get out regardless. So maybe he just wrote the letters.
Well, part of me wants to discount him just because of that thought of like often if you are expressing things through art, you are kind of expressing things there that you don't need to, you're not compelled to do other things because actually you've found a vehicle to kind of share your darker thoughts, perhaps, or feelings.
I don't know. I'd put the case of John Wayne Gacy up there for you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Probably exception to the rule.
Crowning.
Now, the big thing about old Walter, um, which struck me as quite important, was he was actually impotent due to a surgery that went wrong on his manhood. And all the victims, none of them had been sexually assaulted. However, they had been um, knifed, which can be something that impotent killers tend to gravitate towards, let's say.
Yeah, that adds a layer. No, that adds a layer of disgruntled, doesn't it? I think you're very disgruntled if your manhood's been demanned.
Yeah, it was his kind of I suppose the knife became it for him,
Mm,
not to be too rude. So there you go. So there's old Walter. The next one is a guy called Francis Tumblety, who I just really enjoy saying his name, Tumblety. Now
it sounds like the Victorian version of Mr. Tumble, but is that a
he sounds quite sweet, but if I'm being honest, there wasn't much evidence to him being a killer, other than the fact he was rather tall for the time. So he was about 6'4", whereas everyone else was about 5'6".
ton? Yeah, just get picked on for being a giant.
He was American, so he was a foreigner. He did have medical knowledge, and another one that had a dislike for women. And he was described as being cold. So I'm not 100% sure that's much in the way of evidence. I don't think a DA would take that
Oh,
case.
it's definitely him. He's not very nice. He doesn't like ladies. He's way too tall. None of the suits fit him. You know, his trousers are swinging around his ankles, and he's American. So we're just not, yeah, just don't like him. I think they just don't like him. He rubbed somebody up the wrong way in a bar, didn't he? And then they just decided to put that out there as a rumor.
Maybe. But once again, I would argue that someone who sticks out like a sore thumb like that is not going to be able to do these murders. So,
Yes.
moving swiftly on from Francis, we have James Maybrick. Now, this is a funny one because James Maybrick was a cotton merchant. He was described
Ooh,
as the black sheep of the family. Don't know how that's going to help.
but
He was a
so we're making cotton.
he
Yeah.
he was an arsenic user. Now, how can anyone recreationally use arsenic? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm being naive.
Wow. What's an arse yeah.
Eventually, he was poisoned by his wife,
Oh.
and that's when the killing stopped. Now, the most interesting part of this, however, is that back in the early 2000s, a diary came to surface that was apparently from James Maybrick that claimed he was, in fact, Jack the Ripper. And part of the evidence was the fact that with James Maybrick, the JA in James and the CK in Maybrick make Jack.
Oh.
You can't see, I'm rolling my eyes.
Yeah. Because when did the name Jack the Ripper come into being? Who came up with that?
That was the media, I think. Well,
Yeah.
maybe it could have been from the letters. I'd have to check that. I don't know who did it first, the media
Uh,
or the letters.
yeah.
But yeah.
But that's a bit tenuous.
Now,
Bit tenuous. And why did his wife poison him? Was
none
she
of
just
business.
like she'd had enough, or he'd left the arsenic around? You know, he'd been microdosing on arsenic, clearly.
But that would give him a resistance, surely.
Yeah. And then she just went, "Oh, I'm out of chives for the dinner. Let's chuck this in. This looks
Just,
similar."
oh, I taste almonds.
Oh, sorry, darling. And of course, she sat down on the table last because wives always do. So they're just sitting down for their dinner. He takes a bite, gone, and she goes, "Oh, whoopsie! Didn't know."
No more husband.
That's not the way that occurs.
But I look good in black, so we're all
Yes,
good.
yes. Oh well. He always had it coming. How do you recreationally use
I don't know.
arsenic?
I don't know. Maybe I read that wrong. I really hope I did, but I don't think I did.
Of all the recreational drugs, it's the most popular when you like to die swift death. Yes.
So, moving along, I've got slightly more outlandish ones to put forward. So, the first one was Prince Albert Victor. Now, there was a lot of rumours around the royal family. They were the celebrities of the day. Not a lot of evidence, but then again, you could argue that evidence was taken away.
Yes, would have been disappeared
Yeah.
it.
So, it was rumored that he had contracted syphilis from a prostitute and was slowly going insane and was therefore murdering
Mm.
prostitutes for his
Oh,
revenge.
yeah, because it's their fault,
Always
isn't
their
it? Of
fault.
course it's their
Yeah,
fault, yeah,
always
obviously.
them, no one else.
Completely legitimate to then murder people and cover it up. Yeah.
So that was one. I don't quite. There was another massive conspiracy about he actually got a prostitute pregnant, and that was why someone was going around killing prostitutes and stabbing them in the abdomen. But again, really, I don't quite see that myself because there was lots of royal illegitimate babies born all over the place, and nobody seemed to care. So,
Oh, nobody cared what they did they? They could do whatever they liked, and it was just covered up. I mean, yeah.
well, the next one is even better. So the next one is a lord, Lord Randolph Churchill. And yes, that is the father of Winston Churchill.
Oh!
Yep. Um, he was allegedly a head of a group of Masons, a specific set of Masons that had a conspiracy to kill all sex workers. Now, I'm not sure why they were doing this.
And I mean, method, really. If you're gonna do it, I mean, this is taking time.
It is one man.
Yeah, take down, whereas if you do it, probably like stick some bloody arsenic in the water or something going into, or, or spread some
Going
disease.
around with a knife, killing one every week or so really is a bit of a job's worth,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, yeah, that's, that is a job they've given to the to the work experience kid. And
Yeah, that's the apprenticeship
he's gone to
scheme.
town on it, but
So the only evidence that I can really find to do with this one was that he matched the description of a man with Mary Kelly before her death.
okay.
But then again, didn't they all kind of look the same in Victoria? I don't know.
I
He
don't
was a
know, was it a
man.
top hat and a cape? Because
Yeah,
clearly that's what we were looking out for at the time, wasn't it? I suppose that is, yeah, it's a bit of a misdirection, isn't it? Because you'd see that in the, it's my mind, that's always what he's looked like. But that is just the power of an image created at the time, isn't it? The propaganda, I
definitely.
suppose.
It's like his logo, isn't it,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
So I don't put a lot of faith in old Lord Randolph Churchill. The next one was very interesting, but a definite no-no. I'm going to put him in just because he's
Oh,
interesting. So,
okay.
Dr. Thomas Cream. So, Dr. Cream sounds fun, doesn't he?
Oh, that's got to be a euphemism, that one, I'm
His
sure.
moniker was the Lambeth
Mm.
Poisoner. So, he was actually convicted
Oh.
of poisoning 10 people. And the only evidence of him was that his final words were, "I am Jack, dot, dot, dot."
Oh.
Um, However, when I
Mm.
looked into him, he was actually in the US where most of the murders took place. So I'm going to
Yeah.
scrap him off the list almost together. Another fun one, if you can call it fun. Lewis Carroll,
Oh!
author. Yep. So Lewis's real name was Charles L. Dodgson. He allegedly confessed to being Jack the Ripper in anagrams within letters that he sent to people and his work Alice in Wonderland. Not sure I clocked that, but okay. The thing with him, yes, I mean Lewis Carroll should be an episode all on its own, to be honest, because there was a lot of
Yeah.
drama around him. However, he actually lived in Oxford at the time, and I think it's very doubtful that he just popped on a train every now and again just to go and kill a prostitute in Whitechapel.
On a weekly basis,
Yeah,
yeah.
and trains are bad now. I can't imagine how frustrating they'd have been back in
To be honest,
Victorian.
I reckon they were better, to be fair. I reckon they were cheaper and they were quicker.
Or they perhaps ran on time.
You just run and jump on the back in that, day and age? Is it the kind of thing you see in the movies where you've got the open, they always run over and there's always, it happens to be some sort of open carriage at the back that they can leap into that happens to have nothing in it, and then that's how you
That's more
travel.
the US version of the kind of riding the rails hobos. And I don't see Lewis Carroll doing that. But anyway, so I highly doubt it was him. The next one, more interesting, H. Holmes. Have you heard of H. Holmes?
Not Sherlock,
No.
is it?
So H. Holmes was a very famous serial killer in Chicago in the US. Now H. Holmes went above and beyond his serial killer duties. Instead of having a weapon to kill people, he built a whole murder hotel to kill people.
Oh, now this is ringing some bells,
Mhm.
actually. Now you've said that, the murder hotel I've heard of, I think. Just trying to recover myself now because you're gonna banish me from the banishment for not being not being well versed in serial killers. Sorry, carry on. Yes, H. Holmes and his murder
His murder
hotel.
hotel. So he would Chicago was home to the World Fair in America, and he would I'm assuming rob people and kill them. I'm hoping it wasn't just the kills that he was after, but he had a whole hotel that had trapdoors and secret passageways and all sorts just to get rid of bodies and kill people. Not very nice. The only evidence I can find for him was that he looked a hell of a lot like the descriptions of Jack the Ripper.
So he was a top hat wearer then. Yes, he was a top hat and a cape wearer.
He'd have had to have a massive secret passageway beneath the Atlantic Ocean because he was in Chicago the entire time. So it certainly was not.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was him.
How does his name get thrown into the mix then?
I don't really know. I think because perhaps it was quite shocking what he did at the time, and the Jack the Ripper murders were quite shocking. So people tend to group together stuff that they
Yeah.
Because it's better in your mind that one person did a load of shocking things than several people.
Yeah, that humans don't, that only it's an odd and bizarre thing that humans have the capacity to do these things. We want them to be, we want it to be the complete exception, not that humans, the human condition, you know, there are possibilities that this can happen.
Yeah, it's the capability thing, isn't it? You don't want to live in that
Mm.
world. Nobody wants to live in that world. So who's your money on?
Oh, remind me of their
Oh no,
names.
you're going to make me go through everything again now,
Well,
aren't
there
you?
was Aaron.
There was
I
Aaron.
remember Aaron.
So there was Aaron Kosminski, Francis Craig, Montague John Druitt, Carl Fagenbaum, Walter Sickett, Prince Victor, James Maybrick, Francis Tumblety, Lord Randolph Churchill. I think we're going to just get rid of Dr. Cream, Lewis Carroll, and H.H. Holmes. Just take them off the menu.
Dr. Cream. I think I'm sticking with Carl. He seems the most likely candidate for me. You know, when you said it, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm absolutely there. What were the medical professions of each? Do we know? Were there more medically skilled? Because hairdressing, I think it's a skill, but I'm not sure he was Edward Scissorhands. I'm not sure he had
Well,
the.
some barbers would double as surgeons.
Oh, would they? Of
Yeah,
course,
and
yeah.
dentists, I think, as well.
I want a couple of inches off the top, and could you please also remove my appendix? It's getting on my nerves.
Pop it out.
Uh, it's about to burst. Got a feeling in my
I
bones.
mean, to me, I think skills can be learned and not like like put out there to the world. So Carl Fagenbaum, in his sailoring, could have come across people that taught him basic medicine. And
Sailor, wasn't he? Well, also, I don't know, gutting a fish and stuff, I suppose. Would he have had any fisherman like skills? Probably.
although I would argue that some of the murders, perhaps, and who's to say these were the only murders, were not particularly medically sound. Let's say
Well, no, he wasn't working to keep him alive, was
definitely
he?
not. Definitely not.
Oh
So
gosh.
your
Yeah.
money's on Carl.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm going in on Carl.
well,
Yeah, I'm going all in.
you're going all in.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting here as if you're gonna give me the
Well, I'm
answer
not going to give you
in
the
some way.
answer, but I am going to say there is another suspect, and this is the one I'm going all in on.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to tell you yet, though. No, because I'm going to wait till the next episode.
Oh.
Because I'm going to say to you, is it this guy or is it Carl? And you're going to have
Oh,
to
and
then.
I'm gonna have to decide. Okay. Oh, this is the test. This is a real
This is the test.
test. It's quite
Yeah.
fun.
So I've got a guy that I would bet the farm on.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, lovely listeners. This is quite a long one, but I think it's been fun. Thanks for laying out all those suspects for us, Nikki. And I'm looking forward to hearing the next one in the next part, when we come back down the red rabbit hole. So thanks so much for listening. Follow us on social media. Find us where you find your podcasts, and we also have Patreon. So the next part of this, if you want to find out right now who Nikki's got all of her monies on in the suspect for Jack the Ripper stakes, you can find out straight away at our Patreon at the Red Rabbit Hole. Thanks for listening, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you later.
Bye.